A wolf chose you. Not the wolves that attacked, not the wolves that fled. A wolf that stopped, looked at a human fire from a distance and made a decision that changed both species forever. Today, there are 900 million dogs on Earth. They sleep in our beds, guard our homes, guide the blind, detect illness, and comfort the grieving. No other animal is even close. But none of this was planned. No human tribe sat down and said, we should invent a loyal animal that stays with us forever. Dogs were not invented. Dogs happened. And the strangest part is that the wolf started the whole thing.
To understand how this happened, you have to go back 30,000 years. Not to a farm, not to a village, to the Ice Age. Humans at that time lived in small bands of 20 to 50 people. They moved constantly. Most hunts failed. A broken bone could end a life. Winter was a predator that killed everyone it found unprepared. And at the edge of every camp, just outside the firelight, wolves waited, not to attack, to scavenge, because humans are extraordinarily messy eaters. Even during scarcity, hunter-gatherers left behind bones, scraps, and carcass remains. To a wolf, a human camp was a moving supply of free food that required no hunting, no risk, no chase.
Here is what happened next, and this is the part that most people get wrong. The aggressive wolves approached the camp and were driven off or killed. The terrified wolves fled and got nothing. But the calm ones, the ones with a slightly lower fear response, crept closer and ate. Over hundreds of generations, evolution did what evolution always does. It rewarded what worked. The calmer wolves survived better, had more offspring. The offspring inherited the calm. The calm spread through the population. And then something unexpected happened. The wolves that were being selected for calm personalities started changing physically. Their ears became slightly softer. Their faces became slightly rounder. Their tails began to curve.
This sounds like speculation. It is not, because in 1959, a Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev ran an experiment that showed exactly how this works. Belyaev took wild silver foxes and did one single thing every generation. He selected only the calmest, least aggressive individuals for breeding. No training, no tricks, just one criterion: personality. Within 40 generations, which in foxes is roughly 40 years, the selected foxes began behaving like dogs. They wagged their tails when humans approached. They whimpered for attention. They licked hands. But Belyaev was not expecting what happened next. The foxes started changing physically. Floppy ears appeared, coats developed patches of white, snouts shortened, tails curled. Nobody selected for any of these traits. They came along for free. Scientists now call this Domestication Syndrome. When you select animals for reduced aggression and fear, a cluster of physical changes follows automatically. It happens across species: dogs, foxes, pigs, horses. The biology is connected in ways we are still working to understand. Back to the Ice Age, imagine what humans saw. At the edge of camp, wolves that were slightly smaller, slightly less threatening, slightly more interested in proximity than escape. Not pets, not tame, but different. And humans noticed something. These animals had senses they did not. A proto-dog at the edge of camp could smell a predator approaching from a kilometer away, could hear footsteps on frozen ground that no human ear would catch, could track prey through landscapes humans could not read. A proto-dog near camp was not a pet, it was a living early warning system. When bears approached, the dog reacted before any human knew. When strangers came near at night, the dog announced them. When prey animals were in range, the dog could lead the hunt. Some researchers believe that human hunting success increased so significantly with proto-dogs that groups with dogs survived winters that groups without dogs could not. The dog was not a companion yet. It was a survival advantage. This is why dogs hold a record no other animal has ever come close to breaking. Dogs were domesticated before sheep, before goats, before cattle, before farming, before cities, before writing. Dogs were with us before civilization existed. And as humans changed, dogs changed with us. When humans began farming and eating more grain, dogs gradually evolved to digest starch more efficiently than wolves. They did not just stay beside us, they adapted their biology to match our way of life. And something else changed, something harder to measure. When a human looks into a dog's eyes, both release oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds parents to children, the same hormone that builds trust between people. This does not happen with wolves. It developed specifically in the dog-human relationship. Dogs also developed specific muscles around their eyes that wolves do not have. These muscles allow dogs to produce facial expressions that humans instinctively respond to with care and attachment. The famous puppy dog eyes, they are not accidental. Evolution built them, because dogs who could move human emotions received more care and survived better. In Germany, archaeologists found a grave dating to 14,000 years ago. A man, a woman, and a dog buried carefully between them. The dog had been seriously ill as a puppy. The bones showed damage consistent with distemper, a disease that requires weeks of intensive care to survive.
Someone had fed it, kept it warm, nursed it through an illness that would otherwise have killed it. These were Ice Age humans. They were struggling to survive in one of the harshest environments in human history, and they spent scarce food and scarce energy keeping a sick animal alive. That is not utility. That is not strategy. That is not survival calculation. That is something else. And 14,000 years later, we still recognize exactly what it is. Wolves are still wolves. They are still wild, still dangerous, still perfectly adapted to a world without humans. The wolf did not need us, but a few of them chose proximity anyway. And from that choice, made by animals, not by humans, came everything. Every dog alive today carries that original decision in its biology, the oxytocin response, the expressive eyebrows, the ability to read human emotion with accuracy that sometimes exceeds what other humans can do. All of it traces back to a wolf that was slightly less afraid of firelight than the others. Inside every dog, the smallest and the largest, the pampered and the working, there is still the shadow of that Ice Age wolf, watching a fire from the darkness, deciding to come closer. Tonight, somewhere in your home, a descendant of Ice Age wolves is going to fall asleep near you. Not because it has to, because 30,000 years ago, its ancestors decided that humans were worth getting closer to. And that decision has not changed. Tell me in the comments, do you have a dog? And after watching this, does the way you see it feel any different? I read every single one.